Good? All right. I got a feeling this is going to keep going in and out, so I'm just going to talk. Is that all right? Can everybody hear me? Because I am pretty good at projecting my voice. Okay, so my name is Lori Horseman, and I am the Director of Life Enrichment Campus-wide, and I also oversee memory care. And I introduced you to Kelly. So a little bit about me. If some of you don't know my story, I have many years of doing this. My story is very, very personal. It was my dad, my brother, and then my grandmother that I was actually taking care of with this. And as I was going through this journey with them, I realized there wasn't a whole lot of resources out there to actually help the personal caregiver with this. Nobody tells you what you're supposed to do or what to expect. Sometimes the doctors don't even give you an actual clear diagnosis of what type of dementia this person has. So this first step that we're going to go through is just kind of like understanding what dementia is and kind of understanding what's coming as best as I can for you. Understand this, though. There are 120 different types of dementia in the United States. If you met one person with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia. No two people go through the same exact journey even with the same diagnosis. Because the way your brain operates information, collects information, and learns is very unique. It's like a thumbprint. And when you go backwards with dementia, I want you to think of dementia as a form of retrogenesis. You develop your brain in layers, and with dementia, you bring it backwards in those same layers. Does that make sense? So as those layers peel off, I'm going to follow that individual. So a lot of times people say, well, how long does so-and-so have? I have no idea. They were not born with an expiration date on the bottom of their foot. Some of these dementias go quickly, some go very, very slow. But again, the individual is the one that's going to make this determination for us. Okay, so that's not what I'm trying to do. That's not what we're talking about. What I want to do here is teach you ways that you can communicate with your person that has dementia, teach you ways to survive this and meet this new person, because this is a whole new person you're meeting. Has anybody noticed this? This is different. And I'm going to give you some techniques also for stress relieving on how to let go of some of the expectations that you have and meet this person where they are. Sounds easy? It's not. This is going to be tough. And some of you who do know my story with my father, it sounds like it's a sweet father-daughter relationship. It absolutely was not. I love the man dearly, but he was an abusive alcoholic. I have a bump in my nose from where he decided to do a little plastic surgery on it. So it was not an easy thing for me to have to take care of him at the end of his disease with this dementia, because there was a whole lot of built-up resentment, and it was tough. With my brother, whole different journey. That was my hero. That was my big brother. So it was very, very different. So I get that. Personal emotions are going to be involved, but let me show you some techniques. And I need you to have an open mind on this, because this is different. This is unlike anything you've ever going to experience. So for questions, feel free to write them down and then grab me at the end of this, and I'll answer anything you've got. Okay? You can ask me anything on this, because this is something that's tough. So I'm going to show you this video. And there is no guarantee that this is going to work. We're going to try it and see.
What is Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's is a slow, fatal disease of the brain affecting 1 in 10 people over the age of 65. No one is immune. The disease comes on gradually as 2 abnormal protein fragments, called plaques and tangles, accumulate in the brain and kill brain cells. They start here, in the hippocampus, the part of the brain where memories are first formed. Over many years' time, the plaques and tangles slowly destroy the hippocampus, and it becomes harder and harder to form new memories. Simple recollections from a few hours or days ago that the rest of us might take for granted are just not there. After that, more plaques and tangles spread into different regions of the brain, killing cells and compromising function wherever they go. This spreading around is what causes the different stages of Alzheimer's. From the hippocampus, the disease spreads here to the region of the brain where language is processed. When that happens, it gets tougher and tougher to find the right word. Next, the disease creeps toward the front of the brain, where logical thought takes place. Very gradually, a person begins to lose the ability to solve problems, grasp concepts, and make plans. Next, the plaques and tangles invade the part of the brain where emotions are regulated. When this happens, the patient gradually loses control over moods and feelings. After that, the disease moves to where the brain makes sense of things it sees, hears, and smells. In this stage, Alzheimer's wreaks havoc on a person's senses and can spark hallucinations. Eventually, the plaques and tangles erase a person's oldest and most precious memories, which are stored here in the back of the brain. Near the end, the disease compromises a person's balance and coordination. And in the very last stage, it destroys the part of the brain that regulates breathing and the heart. The progression from mild forgetting to death is slow and steady, and takes place over an average of 8 to 10 years. It is relentless and, for now, incurable. Helping your family, friends, and neighbors to better understand Alzheimer's will reduce stigma, improve care, and even help the fight for a cure. Thanks for helping to do your part. Learn more at www.aboutalz.org.
So I show you that. That's absolutely one of my favorite, here it is in a nutshell, 3-minute videos. And you can find this on YouTube. You can share it with family members that don't quite seem to understand what's going on. I can't guarantee that they'll get it after that, but sometimes it helps if they can see that. So I want to talk to you about what dementia is. Nope, not that. So common issues you're going to get. So here's some things I want you to pay attention to for your person that has dementia. If you haven't already gotten it set up, you need to make sure you have your power of attorney, both your financial as well as your healthcare durable, set up for them. Because in some states, after a certain stage, they're not considered of sound mind, and their signature no longer means anything. And Ohio is one of those. So you want to be super careful on this one and make sure that stuff is all set up and ready to go. They're not going to want to give you that. They're not going to want to go to the doctor. They will lose documents, important documents. So if your person is still living at home, don't assume that the trash is all trash. We have a tendency to squirrel things away. We'll shred paper. Hearing aids, wedding bands, dentures can all get put into a safe place that they can't recall where that safe place was. I do this myself. I don't squirrel it away with tissue paper. But have you ever put something in a safe spot and you can't remember where you put it? But what if you had no short-term recall memory? Now we've got a problem. So I learned quickly with my father, toes of shoes are really where men will put things a lot of the times, inside of Kleenex boxes underneath the tissues. And then they'll wrap things up with tissue, and you're going to think that it's trash, and it's not. So pay attention to where those things might be, because if they're missing them, don't ask somebody who has no short-term recall where it is. That's just going to frustrate you, okay? The other thing is they'll get lost. A lot of unsafe task performance. Don't always know what I can put into a microwave. Might not always put the groceries away where they're supposed to go. You might notice them putting the refrigerated items in the pantry. You might notice them putting stuff in the linen closet because I'm not sure where it's supposed to go, but I'm going to make sure it goes somewhere. So those are all very, very common symptoms of this disease. The other thing, too, is the getting lost in a very familiar place. Getting lost inside the grocery store. Getting turned around from the grocery store to come home. And maybe they're not driving to the home that they currently live in, but they're trying to go to the home that they were in when they were 8 years old. Because that's the memory bank that they've got right now. They go backwards in time to their long-term memories. Your core memories are developed between the ages of 8 and 20. And that's where most people with dementia go back to. That's where they hang out. Because those were the memories that will never go away. That's how they identified who they were, and everything there seems to stick. All the new stuff goes backwards in layers, or it gets chopped up, depending on the type of memory they have. Refusing help, being rude. I always tell people, this is not a personal reflection on you. This is not them. This is the disease. Now, my father was a painfully polite man when we were in public, and I knew something was up when we went into a restaurant one day, and he said, wow, the desserts here must be really good. I said, why do you say that? And he goes, did you see the size of our waitress? And he said it loud enough that our waitress could hear it. I'm like, great, we're leaving now. So those are the things that are normal because they don't have that filter in the front of their brain to keep them from saying those things. And it's like, don't sit there and go, well, Dad was always like that. Well, maybe he was, but that filter still isn't there now to prevent anything. Bad-mouthing you to others, very common. That's going to happen. And the reason they're going to do that is because as their caregiver, you are the target. Have you figured this out yet? You are the target. Because you know things that they don't know, and they know you know them. You can do things that they can't do, and that's frustrating. And you always seem to have the answers, and maybe you're correcting them too much. So we're going to talk about this. And some of this stuff you might not want to hear, but I've been there, I've done this. I'm going to give you from personal advice as well as what the research is showing. But the reason you're the target is because you're the primary caregiver. Roles are going to reverse. If this is a parent, you're going to become the parent. If this is a spouse, you're going to become the parent. Everything's about to reverse really fast. It's no longer that same relationship that you used to have with them before. So you're going to become the target in a sense. Refusing and resisting care. Nobody with dementia knows that they have dementia, nor do they think they need the care that you're trying to give them. Have you seen this? To know what I'm talking about? Okay. Making 911 calls. This is going to happen. My dad called the cops on me all the time. I was an intruder in the house. I was stealing things from him. Me and the cops got to be really good friends. And I'm kind of glad they came because there were days I needed them when he went for a walk and I couldn't find him. That's when GPS tracking came in really handy in a shoe. No solid sleep, and this is not your fault or their fault. Dementia does not allow them to drop into REM sleep and stay asleep. This is common. Sleep aids aren't going to work. It doesn't work. Very, very common with the agitation. They might even wake up with a night terror, and they think it's very real. It's a delusion, but you have to go through this with them. The other thing is mixing up day and night, pretty common. If your person worked third shift for any length of time in their life, they're going to go back to working third shift again. So people went, oh, great. And I can't reverse that. Even in a memory care unit, I can't reverse that. If that's what they think they are, in one of my units I worked at, we had a labor and delivery nurse who worked third shift her whole life. She came to us in a memory care unit. She was always up all night long. Her family was yelling at me to make her sleep during the night and wake up during the day. When I found out who she was at her very core, I'm like, I can't change this. So I just changed the programming to match what she needed. She was up all night. We had the programming going for her all night. She slept during the day. That was fine. Once the family understood that she's fine, she's living her best life because she's coming to work every night. She had her clipboard, her stethoscope, and she thought she was taking care of labor and delivery patients, and she was great. But it's going where they are, and it's one of those where you're going to have to make some assessments or adjustments to what they need. All right, so no meltdowns going to happen. Getting into things, definitely going to happen. Getting undressed in public. There were clothing optional days with my dad. Listen, this is just part of the disease process. And there are such things as dignity issues. We try to take care of that. If his person wants to wear the same, Purdue shirt 5 days in a row, go get 5 more of them because you're not going to get them out of that shirt. You might be able to get them out while they take a shower, grab the exact same shirt and another one and bring it in because it's just pick and choose your battles. Some of these things aren't worth you losing your sleep over either. Striking out at others, very common. Falls. Let's talk about this because for some reason you want me to stop the falls. And I would love to be able to do that. But you do understand what dementia does to the brain, right? Balance is controlled in the brain, not with your feet. Balance is one of those things that your body knows right now which way perfect north is. You know how to sit up straight in that chair. With some dementias, as the disease progresses, I can't stop the falls no matter what I do. The falls are going to happen because their balance is off. Now, in a couple of months, I'm going to offer to you to come through a virtual dementia tour. And I'm going to suit you up with goggles, earphones, feet, the whole 9 yards so that you can see what it's like to have dementia. And you will understand quickly why they fall. Because you're going to have a hard time keeping your own balance. I won't let you fall on the tour, but you're going to see what it's like going, oh my goodness. Falls happen because the brain doesn't send the signal left, right, left, right. Sometimes with certain dementias, the feet will go left, right, 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 left, and down you go. Some dementias will shuffle their feet and suddenly think they can go up on one foot to get across the threshold, and down they go. Some dementias will fall out of a seating position because they don't know how to sit back. They keep leaning forward until they come out. This is the disease. I do my best to keep everybody safe. I put every fall prevention I can into place. But falls will happen because they no longer have balance control because the brain's not sending the signal which way is up. Does that make sense? Because I don't want you guys to think we're not trying. We're doing everything we can in our power, but I will not use a restraint on somebody to keep them in a chair. That's not fair. I'm not going to strap them down. I'm not going to wrap them up in bubble wrap. I can't do those things. And you cannot use a restraint to keep them in bed. They have the right to stand up, and according to the state of Ohio, they have the right to fall down. And we just do our best to keep them going. Okay? So it's one of those things that's going to happen. Swearing and sex talk, ugly words, and racial slurs. Going to happen. Now, we do not offer a class. Annie and Sam do not have a course in their life enrichment program on how to cuss 101. This happens naturally because somewhere around the age of 2 years old, you figured out as a child there are certain words that if you throw them out there, every set of eyes in the room turned and looked at you. Do you remember this? I know who you are. Don't act like you never cussed. And you learn those words. And those words are stuck back here. So that when it comes to the fact that you're trying to communicate, you're trying to get a need met, but nobody in the room speaks dementia, which is what you clearly speak, you're going to throw that word out there because you know that when you say that word, all eyes are going to turn and look at you. That's where those words come from. The racial slurs are going to happen. It's all going to happen. This is in no way, shape, or form a direct reflection on them or you. So don't worry about it. We're used to it in the memory care unit. I've been called everything under the sun, and turn around in 3 minutes and that same person is blessing me, hoping I have a nice day. It happens. It's not them, it's the disease. And I'm going to keep telling you that over and over again. Not doing personal care. So let's talk about this for a second. I've given this example a couple of times, but let's talk about this for a minute. Personal care is a lot of work. There's a lot of steps involved in this. So if I asked you to go to the bathroom and brush your teeth, sounds simple enough, right? How many of you heard me give this example? So you should know the answers. How many steps are involved in brushing your teeth? 12? That's actually not a bad guess. Now, I gave you one of the steps. What room did I tell you to go to? The bathroom. But I've actually had an occupational therapy count this out. There's 22 steps involved in brushing your teeth. So now you've walked into the bathroom. Lori said brush. How many brushes can you find in your bathroom? Come on, talk to me. Do they all go in your mouth? Toilet bowl brush, mascara wand. Hey, that even comes in its own tube. There we go. Let's just use that one. Or maybe we have maybe you have a mustache brush, or you got a hair brush, body brush, bath brush. There's a nail brush. There's all kinds of brushes we could get into. But let's go to the fun part. Now, toothpaste comes in a tube and it's creamy. What else is your bathroom is in a tube that's creamy? Preparation H, denture grip, Vagisil, ointment, all kinds of stuff you might not want to put in your mouth. So now you, being the well-meaning caregiver, come in and you say, no, you're doing that wrong. You grab the right brush, you get the toothpaste out, you're in a little bit of a huff, you shove that in their hand and they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? Does the water go on or off? Do I rinse? Do I spit? Do I swallow? What do I do with this? And now after being told that they've done it wrong, probably for the 30th time, what are they going to do? I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to tell you I did, and I'm not going to do it. And now you're going to get upset because they know how to brush their teeth. No, they don't. That is a front lobe function. That is a high-functioning thing, and it's gone almost immediately. Don't be so quick to judge this. And because they can do it at 8 o'clock in the morning does not mean they can do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Dementia is chemical. It goes in waves. They'll have moments where they can and moments where they can't. Please go easy on this and have patience with this. I'm going to give you some techniques as we go down the road on ways that you can make this easier for yourself and for them, using pictures, putting things up on the mirror, and showing them how to do things. But don't be so quick to take things from them and tell them that they're doing everything wrong. Because I've never met a human being that likes to be told that they're doing everything wrong. Even a 2-year-old will tell you to back off. Okay? Now, so that gets hard. Let's talk about paranoid and delusional thinking. We're going to take a deep dive into this so I can explain to you what this is and why this happens. But in a nutshell, sometimes people with dementia can feel that they're losing their memories and that they're losing things. and that triggers a deep-seated paranoia in their hippocampus. Because if you thought that you were losing things, or that somebody was in your house because suddenly there's a coffee cup in the sink and you don't remember putting that coffee cup in the sink because you don't have short-term memory to remember you put the coffee cup in the sink, and then somebody says, no, that's yours, you did that, you know damn well you didn't because you don't remember doing that, here comes the delusions and the paranoia. Does that make sense? Because you're trying to use your big, beautiful brain to reason with somebody who is not capable of reasoning. And here's where all the conflict and the buff comes. So you can't do this. So one of those things I always tell people is watch that. Threatening the caregiver, very, very common, because they're angry. They're angry that you can do something that I can't do. And you feel that way too at times. Do you ever get frustrated, like if you're learning a new card game and somebody else can get it really fast and you can't, you get frustrated. You have the ability to control your emotions. The person with dementia cannot. So it's just raw, and here it comes. The other one that I always talk is like seeking peoples and places from the past. Do me a huge favor and get this one for me. Don't ever tell someone that someone is dead. Don't do that. Because dementia takes everything under the sun from you. So if for a brief moment, if they're missing their mom, and they say, I got to get home, mom is waiting for me, please don't tell that person your mom's been dead for 20 years. Your mom's been dead for... Don't do that. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's reality orientation. That's great on a fully functioning brain, but that's not going to work on a brain with dementia. What you just did was you put them in a really dark place, a very cold place, a very scary place, and a place where they feel like they're out of control. You just took something else from them. And all the emotions of hearing that for the first time are going to come up. They do not need reminders that someone is dead. You do not need to frame an obituary and put that next to it. Why would you do this? Why? There's no harm in them thinking that this person is very much alive. There are techniques on how to get around this. I'm going to walk you through those techniques. So if my dad would come up to me, my dad and my mom died 11 weeks apart. And we were putting up the Christmas tree, and Dad was like, where's your mother? She should be here. And my 7-year-olds at the time thought that was like tears in their eyes. I'm like, Dad, how could you be so cruel? You know we buried her last week. It was the only time I ever made that mistake. Because in my dad's eyes, he just heard that for the first time. He wanted to know where he was, what happened to her, why didn't anybody tell her, was she in pain, did she cry out for me? Wow. He was experiencing her death for the first time. So after that, when he asked that question, he asked it a lot, I figured out the trigger was, all around him was things that reminded him of my mother. The Christmas ornament she had made. Everything was hers. So it's normal for him to ask where she is. So after that, I'd say, well, you know, Dad, it's Christmas time. Mom usually goes Christmas shopping with Aunt Shirley. It's going to be hours before they get home. Why don't we go make her dinner? He's like, you know, you're right. That woman can gab forever. And off we go to the kitchen to make dinner. New location, new room, new task. Done. That's all it took. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. She's not there, and knowing my mom, she is with my aunt doing something in heaven like that. But what I'm doing is I'm validating his concern as to where she is, and I'm letting him know that she is okay. She's fine. That's all I did. But don't ever tell somebody that they're dead, because that is cruel, because they can't process that amount of pain that quickly the way you say that. The other thing is shadowing. This is where you can't do anything in the house without them following you. When I put you through that tour, you're going to understand why you shadow, because you're probably going to start shadowing me in that room. Because if you don't know what you're supposed to do and somebody does look like they know what they're supposed to do, who are you going to follow? The person that looks like they know what they're doing. So I'm going to stay right with you the whole time. That's very normal. Wondering. I don't call this wondering. I just call this exploring. Why do we wonder? Well, because we're restless. There are 2 types of dementias that always have to be walking because they come built in with restless leg syndrome. Alzheimer's is one of them, and they're perpetual motion. They always need to be walking around. They can't sit still. You can't make them sit still. Just let them walk, and it's okay. And the other part of that comes with it is the stealing. It's not stealing. It's just collecting things. They're going to grab stuff and hoard things and hold on to it. When you go through the tour, you might find that you do that too, and you're going to see why that happens. And then the other thing is feeling sick or complaining of pain. This happens a lot, and it's typically a frustration of, I don't want to try something new. So have you guys ever had that hesitation when I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but I don't want to look like an idiot, so I'm just going to say I'm not feeling good tonight, I'm going to bail on dinner. Oh, you've done that? So why can't the person with dementia do that? They don't want to do it either. But pain is a real thing here. And phantom pain is something we're going to talk about later on. Phantom pain does not mean it's fake pain. Phantom pain is this crazy thing that the brain does, that you can actually break your foot, walk on your foot, but favor your shoulder, because the brain's not sending the right signal as to where the pain is coming from. And the person with dementia can't tell you where the pain is coming from. They can't explain it to you. They can just say, I don't feel good. I don't feel well. And they're going to do their best to get that through to you. So you're going to learn how to speak dementia really quick. And then the other thing that comes with this is where they do the contractures, the immobility, they can't function, they can't walk. If somebody is flexed up tight on you, do not try to unflex that. Don't do that. I'm going to show you essential oils, and I'm going to show you music therapy and how you can use that to help them with that. But certain dementias are going to come with that, and there's nothing you can do to really get around that. And then the infections and pneumonia, and like the video stated, that's usually how people end up passing away, is from that one. All right, so dementia is a loss of cognitive function. It's actually now in the disease control as brain failure. It's not so much considered a disease as it is much as brain failure. Some people with dementia can't control their emotions, or their personalities might change. And the other part is that it ranges from all kinds of stages. So depending on who you follow, Dr. Barry Riesberg has the Riesberg scale, and he uses 7 stages. 7 stages that's a lot to take in. We typically work with 3 here in our building, and it's like green is we're still able to function and have conversations with you for the most part without getting too confused. Yellow is your mid-stage, that where most people start moving in, needing some care. These people can't, and basically what I look at is safety at this point. Can you take your own medications and understand that you took them today and not keep taking them 3 more times? Do you understand what can and cannot go in the microwave? I look at safety is what we start to look at right away. And then the end stage is the red stage. That's usually end stage dementia. And when I say end stage, you can live in end stage for 3 or 4 or 5 years. End stage, this is not like dementia when we talk about, or like cancer. This isn't like cancer. And a lot of people go, oh, end stage, so they have days to live? No. End stage just means that their ability to communicate with you is that of a 2-year-old to an infant. So let me walk you through that one more time. Green, first stage, they have the ability of an 8-year-old to a 12-year-old to talk to you. How many words do you use with an 8-year-old? Slow it down with the instructions, right? Yellow stage, which is where the majority of these people probably are, is a communication of a 4 to a 6-year-old. How would you communicate to a 4-year-old? Now, I'm not saying they're childish. I'm saying their ability to understand the words you're saying, find the word to answer it, and bring it back out to you. And then end stage is that of a 2-year-old. So real quick, how many of you raised a child? Did you have the 2-year-old stage? Did you survive the 2-year-old stage? Did you argue with a 2-year-old? Did it work? I'm still waiting to find somebody that said, oh yeah, it's not going to work. And I'm going to tell you why. Your brain develops in layers, okay? And when you are created in utero, by the time, I think it's like 10 days after conception, the neural stem starts. The brain actually starts to develop before the heartbeat even gets in there. So everything comes from that neural stem. And it comes in layer after layer after layer after layer. And this takes time. So some of you know this answer, so shout it out. Ladies, how old are you when your brain is fully developed? Any guesses? 22 to 25. Men, sorry, a little later. Men, how old is your brain? 32. This is science. This has nothing to do with preferences. And I'm going to tell you why. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you why. For those of you who raised boys and girls, you saw this development, and you kind of know what I'm talking about here. So go back with me. When a little girl is playing at the age of 2, 3, 4 years old, and she's playing Tea Party, and she's got all of her dolls set up around the table, and she's got all of that stuff set up, how do you hear her playing? She's talking. She's talking to them, and then she's talking as them to the other person, right? That is full front lobe development. Now go to the other room where the little boy is playing. Everybody's laughing now. What sounds do you hear? Pow, 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 psh, boom, and everybody dies. So they're all about the sound effects. They're not so much worried about that front lobe development, thinking what somebody else would be saying. So their brains develop very differently, very completely different. Women have the ability to be able to do a lot of multitasking, and men get zeroed in on the problem and solve the problem, problem solved. Am I wrong? No. So it takes a while for those brains to get there. And this is usually when I tell people when you were dating in your 20s and you were dating somebody else in their 20s, this is probably why it was kind of touch and go there for a little while. Because the brains weren't where they were supposed to be yet. And it takes a while. Now, go with me on the undeveloping. So if you've ever seen a woman in memory care that's in that yellow to red stage, what do you hear her doing? She's not talking to herself, guys. She's doing play talk. She'll have little conversations. She might be singing to herself. It's self-soothing. And what do you hear that man doing? Do you hear the repetitive sounds? That's why. It's their brain undeveloping and going backwards. So this is how the brains develop differently, and it makes sense when you start looking at this. So all we're dealing with is a brain that's losing cognitive functioning, and it's going backwards in time. That's all we're doing. So we're peeling off layers. So when you look at this, dementia gets more common as we get older. A third of all people over 85 have some form of dementia. Not all of it is going to be permanent dementia. Some of it can be mild cognitive impairment. Some of it can be drug-induced. Some of it can be dehydration. It's not all going to be permanent dementia, so I don't do the doom and gloom here. But I will tell you that in the United States, we have 120 types of dementia. Almost all of them are directly related to the food and diet in the United States. We have more dementias in the United States than any other country does in the world. And there's also a product that is legalized in the United States that's not allowed anywhere else in the world. Anybody know what it is? Aspartame. Aspartame has a direct correlation to early onset Parkinson's, brain cancers, and brain diseases. Dementia being one of those. Stress is also your big factor because we just do not know how to handle our stress in the United States. You're in luck. One of these classes is going to be all about managing your stress. I'm going to teach you how to handle your stress, okay? But with that, the older you get, the more likelihood you have. Several forms of dementia exist, and a person's symptoms can vary depending on what they have. Now, women, we like to multitask. So if a woman is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, or FTD, frontal temporal dementia, before the age of 65, she stands an 80% chance of getting a second form of dementia before she is 70. Can you just stop the multitasking already? And it's kind of wild to watch this woman do this when she goes back and forth between the two. If she has Alzheimer's, she might lose her ability to speak and have clear language. But if it couples up with Lewy body, and the Lewy body comes into play, suddenly she can't walk properly, but she can speak totally clear. And when it flips back the other way, she can walk. It's crazy. This is how dual dementias work on the brain. So it's kind of interesting to watch this stuff happen. But I'll give you all kinds of tips and tricks. So signs of dementias. All right, so basically it's a once healthy neuron or a nerve cell in the brain stops working. It loses connections with the other brain cells and it dies. Okay? So this plaque protein gets stuck on the brain, and then it grows out these towels. And once those towels come out, it starts to emit chemical that destroys the neuron. So everybody loses some neurons as they age. Your brain will actually cut off things that you're not using. That's true. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. Your brain does take things out to make more space for new memories. So that is true. But people with dementia experience far greater loss of memory loss. And it can start in 5 different parts of the brain. You have 5 different areas of the brain. Only one is memory. Not all dementias have memory loss. Did you know that? Some dementias will start with physical function loss. Some dementias, and that's Lewy bodies. Some dementias start with dead center in the hippocampus, and they start with emotional changes right away. It's just emotional changes, not so much memory loss. Because I've got people that I'm working with here that can pass a mini mental exam, but they can't tell you what they had for breakfast because they have immediate short-term memory loss. They can walk, talk, do everything else, but it's like that part of the brain is destroyed. Or they might have massive mood changes. So not everything has to do with memory loss with dementia. So symptoms, first thing I always tell you, though, is before we go through this, you're not allowed to diagnose yourself with this disease. Because a lot of these things are like, oh, that's me. Like, that's okay. It's all right to walk into a room and forget why you walked in there because you have a recall method that will help you get it back. That's not dementia. It's all right to be on your phone talking to somebody saying, just a minute, I can't find my phone. That's called stress. I've seen you. It is absolutely okay to lose your train of thought in a conversation and take a minute to recall what you were saying. That's all normal. That's very, very normal. It's normal to take time to learn something new, take a little bit longer to learn something new. That's normal aging. But let's talk about this. If you're experiencing memory loss, poor judgment, and confusion, it's that poor judgment piece that always scares me first. That's the one I'm like, ooh, that's a red flag. Difficulty speaking, understanding, expressing thoughts, writing, or reading. That's Alzheimer's, classic Alzheimer's. It destroys the left-hand side of the brain. So this is where, if you're having a conversation with somebody, you have to use one sentence with 3 to 5 words and wait. Let it sink in so they can get a picture of what you just said in their head and then be able to recall it back. If you start giving them the answer, speaking for them, you're going to upset them because they're trying to find the answer for you. And eventually, this is an easy way to look at this, if they go to a restaurant and they can no longer make sense of the written words on the page, so they have to point to a picture and say, I'll have that, or they order whatever you're having because they don't really know how to order off of a menu anymore because the written words no longer make sense to them. And eventually, the words on the paper start to dance and look like hieroglyphics. And it's really tough for them to understand what they're reading. They might stare at a newspaper and you think they're reading it. Ask them to, hey, tell me about that article you just read. And if they get frustrated with you, or they say, oh, it's nothing good in the paper today, and blow you off, they're not understanding what they're reading. So there's ways that you can do this, but you got to be stealth about it. You can't come directly at them. That's not good. Wandering and getting lost in a familiar neighborhood, that's pretty common. Trouble handling money, responsibility, and paying bills. This is huge. Now, if you think you have somebody that lives alone by themselves, please check the desk drawer before the power gets turned off. Because bills are hard to understand. Rather than trying to figure out how to pay them, we're just going to put them in a drawer and we'll just put that away for later, out of sight, out of mind. The bills don't get paid. And I noticed my dad doing this. Or worse, he was giving his credit card information to people over the phone. So you might have to give them a dummy credit card. You don't take everything away from them. You just give them a dummy. And the way I would do it with my dad is, you know those little fake credit cards you get in the mail when they want you to like open up an account? I give him that one. And Alzheimer's Association and on Amazon, you can actually get funny money. Now, this is not something you want to let them take and go to the grocery store with because they will get, busted for that. But if they have to have money in their wallet and you don't want them to have that amount of money, because my dad always had to have $100 on his wallet. That was a thing. I gave him funny money. It was Alzheimer's money. He couldn't tell that it wasn't real, but he felt like he had money in his pocket. And he had a fake credit card, and it made him happy. So those are things you can do. Repeating the questions. They can't remember they asked you that. Using, unusual words to refer to a familiar object. Now, I think I talked about this at one point, but it's the brain wants to be right. The brain does not like to be wrong. So my father would do this, and I noticed this with my brother too. It's like they were trying to say the word pocketbook, but Dad would call it padurtleuk. And the way he said it, she was like, he got the P and the K right, and he got the number of syllables in the middle right. Now, every time I corrected him, he would get frustrated. He goes, that's what I'm saying. So if you do this with a child when they say binky or bubby and you just go along with it, you need to go along with this person that has dementia. Does that make sense? Because there's no ACT test this weekend that they've got to get that word right. It doesn't matter. Just understand that that's the word they use for that object and make sure that any other caregivers coming in knows how to speak this person's language. You're going where they are. That's the journey you're on. You can't bring them back to you anymore. You have to go there. So you have to learn their language. You have to learn what their likes are. You have to learn everything about this person again. And as that brain goes backwards, they suddenly might not like the taste of coffee. Because that's an acquired taste as you get older. I don't care who you are. They suddenly might not like certain things that they used to like just a few years ago because now they're back in their 20s or their 30s. You go with them. Make sense? Don't tell me that their favorite color is blue. Maybe they can't see that color anymore, so now their favorite color that they're gravitating towards is orange. Favorite color is the one you can see. And when you get a chance to go through the virtual dementia tour, you'll realize that as the aging of the eye happens just automatically with that milky yellow, colors start to change their vibrancy. And one of the things that we can't see is white. We cannot see like white toilets. We can't find food on a white plate. It becomes a real challenge for us when we have dementia. So you're going to start to see that and understand why they're doing what they're doing. Taking longer to complete daily tasks, losing interest in daily routines because they can't keep up. If you can't keep up, are you going to keep doing it? You're not going to keep going and playing bridge. You're not going to keep going to the bowling. You're eventually going to pull back from all those things because you know you can't keep up. People are starting to judge you. People are starting to make you feel less than. So why would you show up? And this is the huge problem with dementia. Putting them in a place where they feel like they're the small fish in a big pond is not good. Putting them into an environment like day away or memory care is amazing because now they're with like-brained people and they don't feel like they're struggling. They feel like, oh, I can keep up in here. And that's where the whole thing starts to change. I thought I was doing great keeping my dad at home, and I didn't realize how much I really wasn't helping him. We're going to go into more about hallucinations and delusions and paranoia because I really want you to understand the differences and give you all kinds of techniques on how to handle these. Because there are ways to handle these without you losing your mind. But there's a game you're going to play. Acting impulsively because we don't have front lobe. Not caring about other people's feelings. Give them a break. The empathy is gone. It's not their fault. If they're like, well, she's not responding the way she should. Well, she doesn't have the brain ability to be able to do that. Empathy is one of those things that almost gets cut off immediately with all front lobe dementias. So if you want them to cry over the death of a spouse, they might not know what that means, and they're not really missing them, so they don't feel that. So don't force that. Don't get upset at that. They just have lost their empathy. And then losing balance. We've talked about that one. So with that, intellectual development disabilities can also develop dementia. We have now learned this, that all babies born with Down syndrome eventually will have dementia by the time they reach their 30s. And there's other developmental diseases that will end up with dementia as well. So you have to know the difference between what they were like before the disease and with this disease so I can figure out, is this the dementia or is this what we were dealing with before? So I have to figure out which one's which when I start coaching you on this because there's different techniques for this to be able to monitor the changes as they go with this one. Does that make sense? Okay. So yes, people can get that. So what causes it? All right. So this is where two schools of thought come together, and I will tell you almost all of my research comes outside of the United States. I'm a big component of studying what New Zealand's got going on, Australia, and England. They're about 20 years ahead of us in this research. This is where we figured out that aspartame is one of the biggest culprits in the United States that causes this disease. Only 1% is actually hereditary. 1%. That's it. And it follows the APOE genetic gene marker that follows the same mutation as Down syndrome. Now, you can carry the gene for this and never get this, just like you can carry the genes for certain types of cancer and never get it. But what we do know to be hereditary is your lifestyle will usually mimic your parents. So here's what I ask people. Walk me through your stress. How do you handle your stress? Do you eat it? Do you drink it? Do you smoke it away? How are you handling your stress? How do you handle, if you're having a bad day? The stress is the biggest proponent for one of these things. So we're going to actually have a whole thing on this and how to handle your stress. The other thing that we talk about, too, is your sleep patterns. If you're not getting a lot of sleep, that's usually stress-related as well. The way you eat, usually stress-related as well. Are you a physical person? Do you get up and move? Do you tie in yoga? Do you tie in any type of movement every single day? And movement is a huge thing to keeping off a lot of these dementias. And we're going to talk about your diet. There are things that you should never eat. And I'm going to tell you right now, if it comes through the drive-thru in a brown paper bag, you probably shouldn't be eating that. And this is one thing I taught my kids. My kids thought this was amazing because once they got their driver's license, they were able to drive. They, had a card that they were sharing. It was all great. My son was cleaning out his car one day. He goes, "Mom, you're never going to believe this. I went to clean out the back seat and a French fry had fallen out of the bag a week ago and it looked exactly like it did the day I got it." I'm like, this is why you don't eat that. Food should mold. It shouldn't look the same way. So it's like, what are you eating? If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. We've had an influx in the United States when aspartame came on the market. And aspartame was billed to you as a health food thing. And I'm like, oh my Lord. If you do the research on this, and please, anytime you Google something, go to Google Scholar. Don't use Google. Go to Google Scholar and find researched, reviewed articles. And this is where you'll find all about aspartame. You'll find the history on it, how they wanted to push it through. The FDA said no, I think like 5 times. A pharmaceutical company bought the rights to it. Basically made a deal that, hey, if people start to get sick, we'll split the proceeds on it, the money, follow the money train, and here came aspartame. They knew that it had a direct correlation to all kinds of illnesses. They knew what it was going to do. They knew that it was highly addictive. They knew this. They knew that people would start drinking aspartame in your Diet Coke. I think that was the first one that brought it out, was Diet Coke. They knew you were going to get addicted. They knew that it was going to cause an inflammation cycle in the body where that you would crave more and more and more, and you would drink more and more and more. And then they knew it would cause this type of system that the more of that you drank, you thought you could actually eat the hot fudge sundae because you offset the sugars over here with the Diet Coke. And sugar is exactly what dementia craves. They knew that this inflammation cycle would eventually deposit inflammation on the brain. And if you know anything about the start of dementia, it's inflammation on the brain. So it's like, be careful of this stuff. Don't get suckered into this. Read the labels because it's in everything. I mean everything. It's in yogurt. It's in toothpaste. It's in flavored vodkas. I had somebody ask me about that. I'm like, if it's flavored and it has no sugar in it, how do you think they're flavoring it? They have to use some chemical to do this. So pay attention to that because that's the biggest thing right now that we've got that we're working up against. I'm like, guys, it's in your foods. Be careful with what you're eating. And if you are on Diet Coke, please try to get off of that. There's no proven prevention right now, and there is no cure for this disease. There's a lot of stuff that we're trying, but I'm not entirely sure how we're going to find a cure. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You have 120 different types. It's crazy. And then you get a mutation from another type, and then you're able to grab another type. So at this point, the research is showing it's preventative that we have to focus on. And if you are curious in a preventative that we do here at St. Leonard's, our brain boot camps are pretty amazing. We are trying to show you how to exercise your brain, keep your brain healthy, and develop new neuroplasticity growth, because that's the fastest way to do it. And if you want to see a neat preventative, do your homework on the NUN study that came out of the University of Kentucky. That will be eye-opening. Okay, so types of dementias we're going to get into very, very briefly. I'm not going to focus on all 120. You're going to be out of here on time, I promise. But the idea here is that various things come into play. You can actually have dementias that come from neurodegenerative disorders. That you can have anywhere from, like I said, vascular dementia comes into when you have strokes, smoking, high stress, anybody who had like lots and lots of migraines. I usually pay attention to that. The other one is the 5 most common forms you're going to see is Alzheimer's disease is the most common type. That's the one you hear about. FTD, frontotemporal dementia, which, what is his name that's making it popular right now? Bruce Willis. That's the one he's got. That's the whole front half of your head. Lewy body dementia. That's abnormal deposits of protein, and that's basically hits the physical system first. Vascular dementia. That's blood flow. That's the only one that's not chemical based. Everything else is chemical based. And then mixed dementias is a combination of 2 or more of those. That gets kind of crazy. And we're going to take a deeper dive into these as we go. Reversible or pseudo, okay, don't get too excited. Reversible usually is a false diagnosis of dementia. It usually comes from being dehydrated. It comes from a combination of the wrong drugs that somebody gave you. It can, anesthesia. If you go into surgery, emergency surgery, and you're dehydrated, it can take up to 6 months for that anesthesia to come off your brain. And in those 6 months, you might present pseudodementia. And that's something that's totally reversible, okay? Stress, anxiety, delirium, all of that plays a part of it. How is it diagnosed? Okay, this is what I've been telling everybody. No one can ask you 21 questions and make a diagnosis of dementia. That's not possible. All that is a diagnosis that you are stressed out and we need to do some further tests. Because if I gave you that test and you are running on low sleep, as a caregiver, you're stressed out, you might come up testing like positive for dementia just based on a few test questions I give you. But that doesn't mean that's what you have. That just means that you're stressed out. So what we do is I have to have you go through a physical exam, and I'm going to have you do a cognitive neurological test, maybe a psychiatric evaluation to make sure that it's not a psych problem, that it's not a chemical imbalance that's fixable. Then the other thing we're going to have you do is, this is my favorite, you're going to have either a CT, an MRI, or a PET scan. And a PET scan right now is proving very, very knowledgeable. If somebody tells you you can't diagnose dementia until after you die, tell them to please get into the 21st century. We've been able to do this for a long time. So you can actually test that, and here's my new favorite one. You can do a blood test now. And insurance is paying for this right now because I don't think they've figured out what we're doing with it. So you can actually have a blood test done that measures the beta amyloid protein in your brain. You can have a blood test done. And they'll tell you right away, yes, it's dementia, and then you can go in for the PET scan. The PET scan is going to take a look at your living tissue. They might have you do a 36-hour test and keep those electrodes on your head, because a lot of times they want to see how you sleep at night, and that'll tell me exactly where the plaque is on your brain. And from that, we can almost figure out exactly what type of dementia you have. And if you live someplace else outside of the United States, they'd start you on a therapy to start strengthening that part of your brain. So since you live here, come see me. I'll help you. Okay, early detection. This I think we've already gone through. You just have to talk about this. If you think you are starting to lose things and you're not sure if it's stress, you're not sure if it's your health, listen, I've had caregivers come up to me and ask me, is this contagious because I swear like I have dementia? That's quite probable. And it's not truly dementia, it's pseudo-dementia from your stress levels. And if you feel like that's happening to you, please talk to me so that we can get you a respite, we can get you some care for you, we can figure out what's going on with you as well, because that absolutely happens. If you've ever been a mom of newborns, you know what I'm talking about. You can be exhausted, walking into walls, not able to make sense. You don't have dementia, you're stressed out. But if you don't bring those stress levels down and get under control, it can lead to a form of dementia because of the inflammation in your brain. Okay? So, here's what it looks like. Both of those brains are facing me. Okay? So this is the left lobe. So you're looking at the left-hand side of the brain. That top brain is nice and tight and compact with all that purple gooey stuff. Those are your plasticities. That's the neuroplasticity. That bottom brain, do you see how there's almost like a hole over here in the left lobe? So almost all chemical dementias start right there. Now here's what I want you to understand. It's not that the brain is shrinking away and it's still there. That's a wrong interpretation of it. It's disintegrating. That chemical that's emitting and going out is eating away at those memories. And once those memories are gone, there is nothing that you can do to make them remember that again. It's gone. Does that make sense? So once it's gone, it's gone. So as it works through the left-hand part of the brain, it's going to go towards the center. And you see how the center has kind of split right there? That's landing right in the middle of the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is how you keep track of time. Your brain layers your age in decades. And it keeps track of it. And time for you is very, very linear. You know that the calendar has 31 days or 30 days and it starts with the first and goes all the way through. You know that the week begins with Sunday and goes through. You know that breakfast comes before lunch, before dinner. Somebody with dementia does not understand that. They might nod and go, oh yeah, I get it. No, they don't. Because they can time travel. This gets crazy. So those layers are stacked up and you know you have layers. But somebody with dementia can shoot straight up the middle. They can think they're in their 20s at 10 o'clock and their 40s at a different hour of the day, talk about a conversation they had in their 60s, go back to their 20s, and it's the same day. And they have bounced all over the place. So that's what happens with the hippocampus. From there, it moves to the front of the brain. This is where we lose our executive functioning. This is where our filter disappears. This is where we say things we shouldn't. And then once that whole section takes root, it's just a matter of time before it starts shutting down the systems in the body. You don't die from dementia by, people are like, well, how does it kill you? Well, every system that you're doing right now, your brain is sending a chemical system to do this. My dad, he aspirated on his own saliva, and he ended up getting pneumonia in his lungs because he couldn't cough to clear it. He didn't have that reflex reaction anymore. It's not that he drowned on his own saliva, but he ended up getting pneumonia because he could not get the saliva out of his airways. So he ended up aspirating on his own saliva, and that's how he passed away. Some people, it's kidney failure. Some people, the heart stops. Sometimes it's breathing. Sometimes it's a fall, and that's the thing that just takes it out. So it's like, I never know, but I can tell you that the system is eventually going to shut down no matter how healthy you tell me that person is. It doesn't have anything to do with it. If the brain gets eaten away with that chemical, it's gone. Make sense? So now look at that, and if you really raise your voice and you talk really loud to that person and say, what's my name? They're not deaf. They just don't remember you. But what you want to do is make sure that they trust you. You want to make sure that this person still values your relationship with them. So that's when we start to figure this out. We go into the relationships. Diagnosis can only come from a primary physician, must refer you to a neurologist or a specialist. A primary physician actually cannot do this. So you have to go to a neurologist. Neurologist is actually then going to probably send you to a speech pathologist. A lot of tests are going to be done up, and they're going to come back together. And once you have a neurologist you like, stick with them. Okay? So you are on a journey right now. Nobody plans to get dementia. Nobody plans to be married to somebody with dementia. This was not part of the whole package. This is not what you agreed to. But this is the journey you're now on. Nobody knows what to pack for this. Nobody knows what to expect for this. There is no travel agent on this one. This one, you could be in the dark 1 minute, think you've got it going on. The next one, you're like, okay, we've got a plan where this is good. And suddenly the dementia shifts. Because dementia is a progressive disease. It is not static. It doesn't stay still for very long. Just because you had a really good day Monday, that's Monday. Wait till Friday gets here. And a full moon is no joke when caring for somebody with dementia. Has anybody figured that out yet? It's legit. Okay, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here for you. The staff is going through all kinds of training right now. You might hear some of them grumbling about some of this stuff. Some of the stuff they might be like, wow, I had no idea. Eventually, they're all going to be going through that virtual dementia tour first. I like to put them through it before I put you through it. But if you want to go through it, we're going to open that up to you here in the fall. Don't get too excited yet. And I want you guys to see what it's like to have this disease. Because I think in order for you to be the best care partner you can be to your loved one, you need to understand what they're going through. Does that make sense? Okay, and I'm going to put my information up here, and then once we have that up there, June 24th is our next one that we're going to do. I'm going to teach you guys how to properly approach somebody with dementia, and I think I have enough sets of goggles. Now, these aren't the goggles. These are training goggles. I'm going to put the goggles on you to let you feel what it's like to lose your peripheral vision, because that happens almost immediately with all dementias. I'm going to explain to you why it's very, very important that your approach and why you must hold their hand when you're talking to them. Why you have to do that. Because otherwise they don't know that you're talking to them and you just sound like a disembodied voice. So if you can join us next month, please come. Okay? So Annie, I'm going to let you take it from there. I'm sorry, July. Typo. July 24th. July 24th. And I'll be back from vacation. Okay? So you got me? Yep. All right, so now what questions do you guys have? Because now we are off film.